May the force be with you is a phrase used to wish a person well to overcome a challenge. The invitation in this podcast, May the life force be with you, is to explore what it means to truly feel alive, to appreciate the physical, emotional, and spiritual connection to our energy, and finally to understand how this impacts who you are and all that you do. May this conversation inspire you to thrive. This episode of May the Life Force Be With You is brought to you by Moment Company and the Moment Pebble. The Moment Pebble is a beautiful, natural stone, light-guided breathing device and is a unique gift for someone who needs that gentle reminder to stop and take a break, to take moments throughout their busy day and to practice mindfulness. Just head over to momentcompany.co, that's momentcompany.co, and enter the code LIFEFORCE at checkout to receive an exclusive 10% podcast discount. Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good today, thank you.
How are you feeling? You're leaving Australia.
I am. I'm off to New Zealand on Friday, which is a beautiful, beautiful place. And it does remind me a lot of Scotland. I think there's a lot of commonality, even though we could not be further apart in terms of distance. I feel that the land, I will say it's like Scotland, but on crack. It's like everything's bigger, brighter, more vivid. The scenery is similar, but just spectacular. So I'm looking forward to getting out in nature and also taking some time off, which is something I don't do ever. So
Are you actually going to take the time off?
Well, I say that, but then I look at my diary and I've got a work call in pretty much every day, but just one. So that to me is time off.
Yeah, I'm terrible for that, I take time off and then I, in my head, think that is time that I can fill.
Mm.
So I put everything that I've been putting off into my time off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand that. Because sometimes I also am, you can have your thinking time in your time off, and then I think, oh, I must write that down, or I could just do that, or I could just do something else because I'm just sitting here having some time. So yeah, that need to fill the space. I'm going to try and work very hard on by being with other people and be more present with other people. I think is helpful in truly disconnecting. So I'm actually going to spend some time on my own for the first time in 3 months this week as well.
Are you hungry for it?
I would have thought I would have been because it's been quite intense. But actually, I'm actually fearful of now returning to the solitude that is my regular life. I've been so stimulated by other people, and I don't think a meal time has gone by where I haven't sat and enjoyed a meal in the evening with someone else. So that first night of eating alone is going to feel really weird.
I bet it is. I mean, I feel like as we're becoming more Aquarian, it's getting less and less okay to be on your own. Like I used to like being on my own, and I had a friend stay on my couch for a week the other week, and I just realized that my happiness level was so much higher just because they were around and I wasn't on my own, and we were like having cups of tea, and like my daily, like my just general well-being was higher that week than what it is when I'm living on my own.
Yeah. I understand that idea. So it's going to be, well, I'll report back on how it feels to be spending that time. Although I have really enjoyed reading a lot more. So I'm finding those moments to just kind of disconnect, even when you're in a household. So I think there's kind of like finding that balance. So you can still have those moments of feeling solitary, even in a crowded room or in a busy household. So I've really enjoyed reading. So it's something I want to keep up when I'm on my own, because that is a real non-space filler. reading, because you can't really be thinking about something else. You can't be distracted about life, because then you have to go back and start the page again because you've not read it because you're thinking something else. So it's almost, I think, it's almost a form of meditation reading, because you're not distracted by you've quietened your own thought process by being engrossed in somebody else's words, and more so than listening, I think,
I've
to
never
an
thought of
audiobook.
it like that.
Yeah,
It
you can't
is a practice of presence and focus.
100%, right? Because you can't be thinking about your own you can't have your inner narrative going at the same time you're reading
Because
somebody else.
when it does, you get to the bottom of the page and you realise you haven't read the
Yeah.
page.
So it's interesting, isn't it? Because that's like a little practice in self-awareness of what kind of where your mind is at. So you think about how
Yeah.
many times, because of our self-narrative, we're missing what's actually the stories that are going on around us, completely missing them
Wow.
by, because we're so engrossed in our own storytelling.
Oh my gosh, I'm having this like pew 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 like it's just like yes, that what you do when you're distracted reading the book is what we do to the reality of life, to the like story of life on earth when we're wow. And that is why there's so much. I don't know. I was brought up by people obsessed with books, like obsessed with books. And so I was brought up very much with the mentality that like reading is so important. And I kind of now have this moment of like, it really is actually like just taking the time to practice reading is to practice your mental mindful and your ability for your imagination to follow the flow, to not be like off on its own tangents, but to be
Yeah.
following the current or the divine flow of the writer, or in this amazing metaphor for life you've just come up with. Oh, I love it.
Well, yeah, if you're right that it allows your imagination to take over. So I've just read a couple of books when I've been here, and both are movies, and I've
Oh,
deliberately
what are you reading?
so I read Complete Escapism, Daisy Jones and the Sixth. It was actually our friend Hannah that told me to watch that, but I read it instead. And then All the Light We Cannot See is the current one that I am deeply engrossed in. And it's about 10 years old, the book, and it's also on Netflix. But I wanted to read it rather than watch it. And it's beautiful. It's written in the war times. And yeah, I'm fully engrossed in it. So I'm going to go for fantasy next. There's like a whole genre of romance fantasy, which is kind of like Game of Thrones. And I've never read anything like that. So I'm going to dive into
Gonna
some of
dive
those
into that.
worlds next. Yeah.
I
Because,
think that's
they don't
it.
exist. So you literally have to construct in your mind what those
You're
lands
exercising
look
your
like.
imagination.
Yeah. Yeah. But also, as we say, it's active rest, because your mind is quietened from your own to-do list, your daily whatever you're going through. So you're allowing that consciousness to kind of just take a little bit of a break,
Mhm.
and you slip into another dimension, another realm, which is why I'm keen to jump into the fantasy reading, which is it's actually the fastest growing and largest genre. And
Really?
yeah, and I was listening to another great podcast, This Is Entertainment, which I love. And they were talking about the fact that particularly young women are really into this. And it's kind of grown up on Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings and those kind of books. Then as they move into adulthood, they're still kind of seeking that escapism, and so this whole genre
Wow.
is really taking off and taking over. And interestingly, a lot of them are actually written by women. So they've got quite a
Really?
strong female empowerment message within them, that it's not blatant. It's just the lead characters happen to be women because they're written by women for women. And so it's not like, the superhero is the male and is the woman's the distressed one in the tower that gets saved. It's, the women are the leaders of the tribes. There's a lot of kind of interesting cultural mind bending things that aren't normally in those kind of stories.
It's funny. Well, there's two things I want to say. One is that I'm also about to read a book recommended by Hannah, which makes me think we've got to get Hannah on, on the podcast. I mean, I've wanted her on the podcast anyway, but how funny is that?
Sign, show me a sign. Uh-huh.
The second thing is, to bring it back to life force energy. One of in channeling, your imagination is the absolute tool for channeling. Like, your imagination is the gateway through which
Mhm,
channeling
mhm.
happens. And one of the things that I have noticed in myself, is that the days when I waste my imagination in the same way that we have just described, when you're like not present with the book and you're like thinking about other things, and then the days when like I've misused my imagination throughout the day, it is much harder to channel.
Right.
So it's like you so how I understand it is, it's like you have like a certain amount of life force energy within your imagination each day. And
Mm.
if you don't use it well, if you use it on a lot of worry and a lot of things
Imagine
that
what
are
can
not
happen.
self-generating, then it is much harder to get into a connected state. It's like your imagination supply is then low, and your life force energy is too low to be able to channel. And when you were speaking about fantasy, one of the things that one of the things that I felt was that, like, reading fantasy, which is like really exercising your imagination to go into other dimensions, it's really exercising your imagination to be able to channel other beings, be able to connect beyond
There are no
your
rules. There is no
reality.
construct.
And one of the things that I've noticed, because I've been teaching channeling for a very long time, is that people are getting better and better at channeling. And I was like, I wonder if it is partly that generation that like were brought up with this like exercising of their imagination out
Mm.
beyond the realms, out beyond the fantasy generation, essentially, means that they've like got healthier third eyes, healthier imagination, healthier life force supply for connection.
It's an interesting one because you would think, well, I don't know. We'd need to look at the statistics of whether people are reading more or less, whether children are reading more or less, but I guess the imagination can come from things like gaming as well. They are lands that are not real. They're constructed. They're um, taking on a role. They're taking on a persona that isn't theirs. They can escape into adventure. And maybe it is a form of adventure, although it's through a screen. I mean, I personally don't think it is, because I think it's constructed around you, but maybe that's not correct. Maybe it does
Mm.
allow people to imagine a different life.
I think it does, One of the books I read recently was on gaming. It was about gamers. And like it was about the way gamers, like, what was written in it, like, I never really related to gaming, never did gaming. So it was really interesting to read it, because I was really understanding how much the writer of this book was expressing how much gaming is like an escape into being a different. So, in the book, if you're like kind of a bullied, like the kids met in hospital actually, and like, they were using gaming to escape this
Mm-hmm.
quite harsh reality that they were in, because they were suddenly playing these like heroes that could wrestle and things like that like they weren't physically able to do, and
Mm-hmm.
that was part of the service of what this gaming was doing for them.
Escapism, a different
Yeah.
reality. They can live a different reality within.
Or maybe archetypism, like being able to access a different part of you.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe we should get some youngins on that can talk about gaming.
Yeah. Some youngins.
Sorry, I apologize if that in any
Please,
shape
can
or
we put
form
out a
offends
call out
anyone.
for some youngins?
Well, I do want, the teenagers that I'm staying with right now, I definitely
I
would like
want them
to
to
find
come
time.
on.
We're at school right now, but yeah, we can definitely find some time to just get that perspective of,
Yeah,
what life force means to them, how they interact with, their friends, with the very different way of being and growing up that I certainly had. They don't know a non-digital age, so it is very different. What they have access to now as well is incredible. It's not all bad. They have access
mm,
to the world in a way that, you know 50 years ago would have just been, only for a very small percent of people. So there's a lot of really great positives. It's just different.
absolutely. It's a very interesting time to be young. It's a very interesting time to be a young'un.
Wow. Don't say that. I'm going to forget that I said that. I didn't mean it to be patronizing in any way. I
It's not patronizing, it's brilliant. I love it.
It's all relative to who you're speaking to, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And life force keeps you young anyway.
I think it does.
Yeah, definitely. We'll be young'uns before you know it.
Well, that would be, can we put out what's the right word? We can send the message that, it's anti-aging.
Totally anti-aging. In fact, there's somebody that I've just invited on the show who is a face yoga expert.
Oh, yay!
And
Oh,
she
I'm
works
so
with
excited.
energy, and like, yeah, she works with energy, and like, I'm just like, and she looks so young. And I'm like, I so cannot wait to talk to you.
Me.
Like about
I
life force energy from a youth perspective, from becoming young,
When
looking
I
young.
when I properly am in my practice and do my face yoga, I feel the difference. I have done it. It's like part of my sort of daily stack routine, is that as I come out of my meditation, you're supposed to kind of sit quietly for a few minutes, and I do a face routine with those
Hmm.
few minutes every morning. But I've kind of
That's
fallen
why
off
you
the
look so young.
It's because, but when I have to get up at 6 a.m. and start work calls, I'm not finding enough space in the mornings to be able to do that. So, yeah, you're making me think about how I can do more face yoga. So I'm very excited by that, and it's just so.
Yeah, no, she said yes. She just hasn't. She does what all of our guests do, which is say yes and then doesn't actually book. So we'll have to check her out.
That's okay. And when I started doing transcendental meditation, it's one of the first things they said as well, is that you will look younger doing this. I don't know if it's part of the pitch to get you in the door, but because you're releasing stress, because you're resetting your immune system, because you are finding that space, back to the reading of, you're just letting your thoughts quieten down, your system relaxes, then that is rejuvenating.
Mm.
And with that is a youthful glow.
And I do think that life force is the fountain of youth, you know? I do. The more we talk about it on this show, the more we're exploring it, the more I'm like, yeah, it's all, you know, how much older I feel when my life force energy is low.
Yeah.
Like my physical body has more ailments, more aches, more pains, more, you know, like when my life force is low, I feel like I could like an old person. And when my life force is high, I feel like childlike, you know? If your life force is really, really high,
Mm.
you like are flexible and full of energy and your eyes are sparkling. Like it is the fountain of youth, you know? Your life force energy is the fountain of the young'un.
Oh no, what have I started? What have I started?
Oh, I love it.
Well, I need to get on and be a youngin today.
Have a wonderful day, young'un.
Thank you very much. And
And have an amazing time in New Zealand. I can't wait to hear about it.
I will, thank you. And I will catch you all soon. As my voice
May the
fails.
life force be with you. We hope this conversation has topped up your life force energy. If it has, then please help us spread the life force. Like, share, subscribe, all of that. And may the life force be with all of us.